And we should be all set to go.
Okay, welcome to the second Kelsay Books event. And we're just really happy to have everyone here. We have a good crowd. We've had 113 people register. So we're really happy that we can hold another event. We're going to start out with, hang on here. We have some guest readers, and then we also have 4 featured poets who are going to read a little bit longer. But we're going to start out with our guest reader, who is Charlotte Ennis.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm very fortunate that I have a couple of books with Kelsay Books, and the latest one is this one, 20 Pandemicals, and it's a chapbook with the poems are all in the same form. Most of them are rhymed, which is unusual for me, and they vary in tone and mood and everything. And most of the ones I've read at all have been the lyrical ones, but I thought that today I would read one that came from feelings that I'm sure we all had of anger and frustration and what's going on with the world kind of thing. So, and also the fires in California. I live in Los Angeles, and both in 2020 and 21, we had terrible fires, and it sort of mixed in with everything else that was going on. So this is called Pandemical number 15. Another fire and the sky's gone yellow again. There is no other way to say this, but another fire and the sky's gone yellow again. It's hard to resist a striking symbol, but skip the apocalyptic stuff for these truths. Kids in cages, tear gas, lying. It's no surprise that many have tried to seize the day with books and speeches, but we're dying, and every word's a splash of blood with no one stanching wounds on the daily canvas. Brown and black predominate, so seeing the bones of it almost can't be done. There's a clown, I think, a circus scene, some magic tricks to distract the dying crowd, and a flying trapeze bearing a child wielding shadows. Transfixed, the crowd screams, "Lock," and conjures hate disease. Thank you.
Am I just supposed to go next, Karen?
So Karen, it does look like you're muted.
Okay.
There you go.
So we're waiting for Marjorie.
Okay. Thank you to Karen and the rest of the Kelsay Books team. As Karen said, I'm Marjorie Maddox, and this is my book from Kelsay Books, Inside Out, Poems on Writing and Reading Poems, which teaches poetry from inside the poem. It's for first-time poetry lovers, YA students, teachers, and it includes a bunch of insider exercises, plus 27 poems that really talk about different poetry terms and different poetry forms. So an English sonnet is explained in How to Write an English Sonnet. Fishing with Sestinas explains a sestina. So here's one for you today. How to write a villanelle. To write a villanelle, think like a bird that soars and swoops in 7 different ways, then sings a song that you've already heard, returning to its favorite branch to perch. Become a sparrow, light and quick and gray, to write a villanelle. Think how the bird salutes you every morning undeterred from trilling what it always wants to say within its favorite song. The one you've heard so many times, you suddenly are stirred to listen closer still. to find the way to write a villanelle, just like a bird that flits across your vision in a blur and leaves the sound of beauty in its trail. Still singing songs that you've already heard. Next time you want to fly away on words, remember what we talked about this day. To write a villanelle, think like a bird that sings a song that you've already heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Next we have Charles Carter.
Hello, I'm Charles K. Carter, and I'm going to read a poem from my chapbook called Splinters from Kelsay Books. This is called When I Dream of the Ocean. When I dream of the ocean, I dream of your face. I dream of the scent of sunscreen, sensual hands on back, closed eyes kissed by the shine of another sunny day. When I dream of the ocean, I dream of the smooth caramel sand spackled on the back of your bright white legs, freckled like fresh strawberry lemonade, like the backs of your hands. When I dream of the ocean, I dream of the high tide that washed away the sand from our feet and the gleam from your chocolate pudding eyes. When I dream of the ocean, I dream of tropical storms, of tidal waves and riptides and hurricanes taking away all that is good and sunny and warm. When I dream of the ocean, I dream of your broken sandals found in the estuary. I thought you were lost to the sea until I saw you in that Midwestern cafe. You were not lost to the sea, only lost by choice, lost to me. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, Jenna is going to introduce Barbara Lydecker Crane.
I'm just
Read
going
her
to read her bio. Barbara Lydecker Crane, a Rattle Poetry Prize finalist in 2017 and 2019, has received 2 Pushcart nominations and several awards from the Maria Faust and the Helen Schabel Sonnet Contests. Her poems have appeared or are forthcoming in Able Muse, Alabama Literary Review, Ekphrastic Review, First Things, Light, Measure, Mesocanon, Montreal Review, The Orchards, Pulse Beat, Think, Writer's Almanac, and many others. She has published 3 chapbooks, Zero Gravitas, Alphabetrix, and Backwards Logic. A 4th collection entitled You Will Remember Me, Sonnets about Artists and Portrait Paintings is in the works. Barb is also an artist herself, though she focuses mainly on poetry these days. She adds, one tiny silver lining to this pandemic is that the time it affords for research and writing. Still, she says, she's grumpy.
Yeah, well, one thing that helped make me less grumpy was preparing this reading today, because I've picked poems that I think are all on the humorous side. So thank you, Jenna, for that introduction. And thank you very much, Karen, for having me and for having this event. So a few years ago, I happened to see a billboard that said, Sonnet Insurance. Well, I said, I want that. I'll have to write them a letter. So I wrote this poem entitled Letter to Sonnet Insurance. Dear Sonnet staff, I'm eager for your plan. I'll want an underwriter old school based, Petrarchan or like Larkin in his taste. He'll speak my terms. I'll benefit from your man adjusting rhymes, making meters strict, assuming the risk of an errant anapest. Does your firm ensure I'll stand time's test? Do you pull strings to have every effort picked by a premier publication? One quick draft and the one quick draft in the condition of a pre-existing sonnet, and the English-speaking world would dote upon it. But truth be told, my first attempts aren't craft. Sonnet Insurance, if you file this letter, insure me later, when I write it better. So then I have, thank you, I have 3 to read from this book, the first book that I did with Kelsay Books, Zero Gravitas, where Zero Gravitas, like it says, not a single poem is serious. Well, maybe 1 or 2. So I'm going to read 2 short poems that are both have to come with apologies to Emily Dickinson. I'm very sorry, Emily, but I wrote this one. Soap is the thing that lathers. Soap is the thing that lathers. The dial I exalt. A bobbing bird of ivory that never sinks at all. Caress to my extremities, reviving zest so warm. Irish spring from grimy mine, a life buoy after storm. I seek to hold this little dove that skirts my bathtub sea, but always, when it slips and slides, it will coast on back to me. And one more, with further apologies to Emily, is based on her poem, I Was the Slightest in the House. Excuse me, 1 second. I was the slightest in the house. No, I was the slightest in the house. I was a bedbug in that house. I dwelt in Emily's eider. Heaven could not equal this, my bliss to sleep beside her. So stationed, I could sip her tears. Such piquant wine would fall, and oh, her blood, it was exquisite. For me, sweet E was all. I never moved from that address, nor she, how well we matched. All day I'd listen to her pen and fingers as they scratched. I've wondered much about her ways, such quirkiness I sense, but who am I to cast a slur on mighty Providence? So I have one more from that book. This is a bit a longer one. It comes by special request to be read, and it's in the tradition of an Irish curse poem, which, if you're not familiar with it, can be a very cathartic form to write. A quilt maker's curse. At every meeting, she'd whip out a few new art quilts from her bag. On one, the shimmer of scales on trout. I made that yesterday, she bragged. Dumbfounded, we would all applaud. Then we'd take turns to show our things, perhaps unfinished, likely flawed, but she'd leave early on the wing. That star of our monthly quilting group let fly one day this fiendish quip. I won't forgive her, can't recoup my punctured pride since she let rip. Except for one, your quilts are boring. I hadn't even asked for her opinion. For her, I'll stitch these lines, exploring a malefic end to her dominion. With widening eyes, may she gaze upon her gloried fabric stash, now dulling into sooty grays. May spools of thread shiver and crash, bounce on her hardwood studio floor. Let her fall, the art quilt queen, bruised and shaken to the core. She'll whimper, limp to her machine, and yank the fabric through her damned and newly blighted high-end faff. May the threads now tangle and jam, the needle repeatedly break in half, and the tensions always be at odds, and may that little light burn out. The dazed and dimming star now plods and paws for pins. Let her shout as points are piercing, fingers shredded. Bloody hell, I hear her shrieking when smears and spots of indelible red deface her deft, impeccable piecing. But then she'll squint perceptive eyes and call it something apropos like pygmy mammoth screams and cries, and enter the next quilt national show. Again, she'll pass the judge's muster, so primal, so impassioned, they'll gush around her work in drop-jawed cluster. Bloodstains draw a reverent hush. But she's not there for accolades. This quilting star has fallen fetal on the floor, where she now fades in a fatal infection from her needle. Phew. Clear the air after that one. Moving on. This is the second book I did with Karen. Alphabetrix is a book of alphabet poems, as you could guess, based on children's tastes, but you might like it too. Each poem is in the shape of a letter and describes something that begins with that letter. So here's I, which I will read. I is for I. It is true that I is me. If you say it, I'll be you. Try it and see. And here is J and K, which I'll read. K is for knee. If this line is a leg going from point to point, then this line is a leg that's bent at this joint. And one more, valley. When you hike down a valley, you might get very tired, but then you have to rally to climb the other side. I have two more to read that are both sonnets, and they're both from that manuscript that Jenna mentioned in the intro, You Will Remember Me, which is 80 poems, ekphrastic poems, all written in the imagined voices of the 80 artists that are represented in the book, where each poem says something about the artist, about the poem, about the portrait that they're writing about, and I hope a bit about their times, because these artists do span the last 500 years. Most of the poems are really not funny at all. In fact, some of them are pretty heartrending, but these two that I'm going to read, I think might make you smile. Both of these are way back from the 16th century. The first one is a painting of Henry VIII. It's about a painting, it's about that painting, which is Henry VIII, which was painted in 1540 by Hans Holbein the Younger. And it's called Painting Henry. To feed my family, Holbein might have said here, to feed my family, I paint his girth again. Such privilege at court I can't evade. King Henry's doublet could enfold 3 men inside its mink and glinting gold brocade. I draped a band of gold around his chest. Together with the shape of his plumed hat, it makes a kind of halo, my private jest and public tout of this colossal rat. Although I've made his royal raiment glow, I've not adorned the plunder of his face, his tiny mouth, his cheeks like risen dough, his weasel eyes. And though I know my place and bow to most caprices and commands, I won't enlarge his most unmanly hands. And the last one is by an Italian artist of the 16th century named Lavinia Fontana, someone I was not familiar with until recently. She painted a self-portrait of herself called Self-Portrait at the Clavichord, which turned into this poem called Arrangements. I'll first tell you two foreign words that appear in the poem. The first is virginem, which means virgin in Latin. And the other one is e virato, which means emasculated in Italian. So you'll hear those. Arrangements, again, in the voice of Lavinia Fontana. Bemoaning me, unwed at 25, my impoverished father thought my art a draw, a sort of promised dowry. He contrived how I'd impress my future father-in-law. I'd paint myself arrayed in lace and satin at the clavichord, a skill I cannot claim. I writ my virtue and my learning in Latin. Virginem I scribed beside my name. My portrait did impress. The fathers decided I'd wed a man I never met. Soon, Jean began assisting me at work. His pride survived the gossip, as did his impish grin. Everato, he knew the neighbors said. 11 babies, put that barb to bed.
There you go. Thank you so much, Barbara. I'm going to introduce our next guest reader, Daniel. Is it Klawitter? He told me earlier and I just completely forgot. So Daniel, correct me and please read your poem. Thank you.
You're all good. Thank you so much, Karen.
Klawitter?
Klawitter.
A Klawitter. Oh.
Yeah. Or Klawitter. It depends. Klawitter's good. Thank you so much. It's great to be here. Thanks to all the readers. Love your work, Barbara. Love Emily Dickinson as well. So that was particularly enjoyable for me. So I'm just going to be reading one of my poems from the 4th book that I published with Kelsay Books. And the book was Quiet Insurrections. It's kind of hard to see there, but the poem is a little cosmological wonder poem called Heavy Elements. The lightning rips a seam of sky wide open, slashing a gash through night's ink-splashed manuscript. And the stars are the trillion eyes of an unseen God, each eye lit like a candle wick to illuminate or ignite the parchment of our hearts, our weeping wax and sticky pitch, all our combustible bits and parts that come from the same stuff of stars, or so I've been told, formed in the furnace of a cosmic bonfire, 4.6 billion years old. Thank you.
I'm doing it all the time. I'm forgetting to unmute myself. The next guest reader is Terry Allen.
Hello.
Tell her it's under Nancy.
It's under Nancy Jo Allen.
Right.
Hi, I'm Terry. Using my wife's computer, I had some trouble with Zoom. I'm going to share with you a prose poem from Monsters in the Rain. And the title of this poem is You Can't Change the Past. It's one of those titles that moves right into the body of the poem and becomes its first line. So here we go. You can't change the past. You might as well forget it, unless you have a time machine. Maybe a full-length closet mirror you can step through to find yourself in junior high school at a dance, looking across the gym at Charlene Rush, the girl that everyone teased and ridiculed. Only this time, you walk over to where she's sitting by herself and you smile at her, what she's not used to, and you ask her to dance without giving a damn that all the guys think you're a dork weasel. And if you can do something that important with your time machine, you might as well get your best friend and a tribe of pygmy warriors that you two saw on National Geographic to help kidnap your father. Tie him up, blindfold him, and stick him in the trunk of the car and drive him to the doctor's office. Check him over from top to bottom, you say. And with the help of your friend and the pygmies and your handy time machine, your father doesn't die young. And you two have a chance to talk about all the important things in life, like what it means to be kind. Thanks.
I mute myself. Thank you, Terry. Jenna is going to read the bio for Jean, and then we're going to have a 5-minute break. So,
I think I'm reading the bio for Laura.
Jean
Alright.
Kreiling.
Jean's next.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Jean L. Kreiling is the author of 2 collections of poetry, Arts and Letters in Love, 2018, and The Truth in Dissonance, 2014. Her third, Shared History, will appear in early 2022. Her work has earned the Able Muse Wright Prize, the Great Lakes Commonwealth of Letters Sonnet Prize, the Kelsay Books Metrical Poetry Prize, 2 Laureates prizes in the Maria W. Faust Sonnet Contest, 3 New England Poetry Club prizes, the Plymouth Poetry Contest Prize, and the String Poet Prize. Kreiling is Associate Poetry Editor for Able Muse, a review of poetry, prose, and art, and a longtime member of the Powwow River Poets.
Thank you, Jenna. And thanks to all of you who are spending a bit of your afternoon with us. And many thanks to Karen for organizing this and for all the great work you do for so many poets. I'm so happy to be part of this, although it's a bit daunting to follow my very talented friend, Barbara Lydecker Crane. I knew she would be reading some ekphrastic poems, so I decided to start with one. This first poem is a response to this painting. This is a painting of Mary Cassatt's mother. It's called Reading Le Figaro. And you can see that the artist's mother is very absorbed in her newspaper, not distracted at all by that mirror on her left. So the poem is called She Prefers the Newspaper, after Mary Cassatt's Reading Le Figaro. Mirror, mirror on the wall, I'll read news of scandal, brawl, storm, and death, but I will not turn to look at you. I've got more important things to see than well-coiffed and roughly me. I'm more curious than vain. And of course, you can't explain politics, finance, or war, so you're easy to ignore. I sit in a comfy chair, but I think, inquire, and care. You reflect without reflecting on a thing. I'm not objecting. You look fine, you're nicely framed. If you're dull, you can't be blamed. Mirror, mirror on the wall, you're irrelevant, that's all. That comes from my second book, Arts and Letters and Love. And this book consists entirely of responses to art, music, and literature. So next I'm going to read one of the music poems from this book. This concerns a collection of short piano pieces, one for each month of the year, composed by Fanny Mendelssohn Hensel, sister of the much more celebrated composer Felix Mendelssohn. I've taken Hensel's collective title for these pieces as the title of my poem, Das Jahr, or The Year. Her father urged her to be more reserved, but she let February dance and play. made March a brooding rebel, and preserved in sunlit song the secret dreams of May. Her brother's praise was tempered by his warning that she should focus on her home and son. But she filled June with operatic mourning, September with a river's bubbling run. Her husband painted and encouraged her as she drew pictures for the ear to see, from January's snowbound overture to late December's stained glass piety. 12 pieces make the music of her year, a wordless diary for all to hear. And I'll read one more from this book. The starting point for this poem was a line from The Great Gatsby, and I've taken that line as the title of my poem. Her voice is full of money, after a line from F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby. Her voice is full of money. His house is full of flash. The shoreline drips with honey. Their hearts both drip with ash. Her husband runs around, and she'll have her fun too. Beside Long Island Sound, such news is hardly new. Her hats are broad and chic. His yellow car is bright. Their consciences are weak, and this won't be their night. I'm going to read my first book, that's where I was going. My first book is this one, The Truth and Dissonance, published in 2014. I'm going to read the very last poem in this book, which was inspired by the great love story I observed between my parents, both of whom I've lost since this book was published. The title of this poem is Pas de deux, literally a dance for two. Their dance defined by melodies few know, they move with matchless grace and deftly hide the wear of well-lived decades as they glide in happy synchrony learned long ago. Their lithe duet has not eluded pain, but when they meet despair's discordant tone, they dip and sway, resilience having grown through years of heeding one sublime refrain. For neither cadences of loss and fear, nor common time has ever stilled their feet. Uncommon hearts discern a subtler beat and live the music others hardly hear. In compromise as well as celebration, their two-step traces love's collaboration. And I'll read one more from this book. This introduces a bit of semi-local color. In Newport, Rhode Island, about an hour from my home here in Plymouth, Massachusetts, is the magnificent Cliff Walk. You walk along these cliffs, and on one side you have the ocean, and on the other you have the summer cottages of the very, very rich, most of them built around the turn of the century. This poem is a villanelle titled Newport Mansions Observed from the Cliff Walk. I don't want to admire this opulence. I want to frown on these icons of greed, rejecting this seaside extravagance. But maybe if I didn't count my cents and dollars just to meet each daily need, I'd readily admire this opulence. The chandeliers might not cause such offense if gas bills didn't make my budget bleed and new shoes weren't an extravagance. Within these marble walls, behind immense arched windows, there once lived a moneyed breed that knew no want. Admiring opulence like this, while some folks live in cars and tents, just seems unseemly. We could house and feed so many with half this extravagance. I walk along the sea at no expense past Vanderbilt backyards. I will concede that yes, I do admire this opulence, but I prefer the sea's extravagance. The sea shows up in a lot of my poems, especially in my new book called Shared History. And the cover of this new book looks like this. And I just got the news this morning that it's now available. I haven't held a copy in my hands, but apparently it's available on Amazon. And this book includes an entire section devoted to the ocean. The section is called Sea Sonnets. So here's one of the sea sonnets. Waves. Sprawled on a pew of sand, you meditate on miracles of tide and time, without a prayer, but apparently devout and humbled by the water's shifting weight. You watch with wonder, even venerate this higher power rolling in and out, omnipotence too obvious to doubt, authority too awful to debate. Like salty spray, some blue-green grace may cling and seep unsanctified into your soul without a psalm or sermon. For the sea makes its own joyful noise. The breakers ring uncounted changes, and no church bells toll more faithfully or irresistibly. Some of the shared history in this new book is very personal. This is a poem written in memory of my sister, who died much too young in 2013. It's called Inheritance. It was at first my mother's mother's ring, and then it somehow skipped a generation and was my sister's. Subtly shimmering, it was a delicate old world creation that I thought would have looked good on my hand. 3 tiny diamond chips set in a small etched silver oblong on a golden band. Although we laughed about it, I recall my jealousy. That heirloom was the one I'd coveted, a wish I didn't hide, but her slim finger wore it well. In fun, she said she'd leave it to me when she died. I wear it every day now, and I guess there's nothing that I've ever wanted less. The new book has a section devoted to travel, and I'm going to display the cover again because the photograph on this cover was taken at the Salisbury Crags in Scotland. The Crags are a group of hills just east of Edinburgh, and I was fortunate to walk along those crags several times when I visited Edinburgh for a musicology conference several years ago. The poem refers to Arthur's Seat, one of the peaks, and that name may or may not refer to the medieval King Arthur. There's some argument. And it also refers to the Forth River. This is a rondeau, so you'll hear the distinctive repetition of the opening phrase. The Salisbury Crags, Edinburgh, Scotland. Along these crags, near Arthur's Seat, you watch your own slow tourist feet connect the dots of random stones, sidestepping falls and broken bones. Then you look up and see complete an epic realm. Green hillsides meet a gray stone castle. Down the street, a palace preens. A fourth wind moans along these crags, chastising those who fear defeat by pebbly paths. Small perils greet the hiker, while time's rigor hones a city's pride. The thistle throne's high heather nods, and lost hearts beat along these crags. And I'll close with another poem from the travel section of Shared History. Several girlfriends and I decided to observe a certain milestone birthday by taking a cruise together. We had more fun than I could possibly write about, but this will give you an idea. Girls' cruise. At Playa Uvas, Cozumel, we kayaked, although not too well. With greater expertise, we shopped and showed yet more skill as we hopped from spa to bar to beach, then back to bar. Tequila shots and Jack and Ginger had beguiling charms. So did the barkeep's muscled arms. We really liked repeating si and uno mas. But finally, we made our way back to the dock. Our ship set sail at 10 o'clock. When midnight brought the big buffet, we all were fast asleep. Olé. Thank you very much.
Karen, you're muted.
I'm doing what I told everyone not to do. Thanks, Jean, that was great. Why don't we turn off the recording and take a 5-minute break, and everybody can. Gregg is our guest reader, and he's going to read one of his poems for us. Go ahead.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm going to read one from this collection of unruly sonnets. The collection's called Would You Be Made Whole? Is that the monster, Genghis Khan, struggling with his cane and the front door? Should I shove it closed against him? Or help? Because now he's past doing harm, his feeble body more than he can manage. Madonna's on the wall above the plate rail, immaculate as ever. So you might think his reign of terror was weathered without lasting harm. Might, but don't. Even so, have pity, ease him onto the counter stool, like when he was a wee lad. Who could have guessed the trouble he'd cause? It seems he's glad to be here, reduced to innocence. Likes the pie, that's clear, beard hung with glaze. I've a mind to be, but won't be, stingy with the napkins.
Thank you, Gregg.
Thank you.
Our next guest reader is Mary Beth Hines.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be here with you all today. I'm one of the newest members of the Kelsay family. This is my debut poetry collection, Winter at a Summer House, that I'll be reading from today. Let's see, pull it up. This is a winter poem and a love poem as we come upon Valentine's Day. Working from home during a storm, we listen to ice and snow pelt the cottage all morning between conference calls. When we look up from our blue screens to peer out, I look east, you north. Finally, lunchtime, and together we burst into the kitchen, ravenous, soup and bread, and against good judgment, wine. I take one sip and cannot stop. And soon we're outside, me wrapped around you on a sled, Harley style, flying down a crystal slope Later, we peel off clothes, nubbed with ice, and step cool-limbed to the hearth where you build a towering fire. And we revel there through the long afternoon into evening, all shadows and skin, breath and ice, teeth and coyotes howling for love deep in the shimmering hills. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now we're going to hear from John Steele.
Hi, everyone. So good to be here with you today. I'm reading from my recently published chapbook, The Stones Keep Watch. And this poem is a ghazal. It's called Listen. Listen to the river rock percussion tones. Who hears the water dervish swirling over stones? Who hears? Tibetan prayer flags slap a fence pole, soprano through the malleus bones. Who hears? Kids on skateboards grind across a bridge. A mallard quacks to her young clones. Who hears? A van with studded snow tires thunders past, pounding rap through residential zones. Who hears? When Rumi cries out, Shams, angels faint, the far-flung void intones, who hears? The one who turns when someone calls out, John, feels the question stirring in his bones. Who hears? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, our next feature is Laura J. Bobrow. She's going to read for us now. Thank you.
I'm going to be reading her bio, I think.
Hang on. Go ahead, Jenna.
Okay. In her 20s, Laura J. Bobrow embarked on her poetry journey by writing poetry for children, and here she is at 93, venturing boldly into the adult world with her third chapbook, in which she figuratively shakes her fist at death. Her poems have appeared in more than 100 venues, including a textbook in Abu Dhabi. A Renaissance woman, she has had multiple careers over the years: magazine editor, folk singer, sculptor, and painter. Her short stories have appeared in numerous anthologies. She is a well-published song lyricist. She is, in addition, and perhaps foremost, an acclaimed professional storyteller.
Go ahead, Barbara. Laura.
Hi. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to rant in front of so many talented poets. The poems I will read first are from my chapbook entitled Endgame. And the titular poem is called The Endgame. Red Rover, it's time to cross over. Mother, may I go? My playmates have left me. The schoolyard is empty. I'm left here alone in the snow. I could use my jump rope to try to cross over. Is that how it's done? I don't know. My loved ones are waiting. I might play at leapfrog, but no one is nearby. Hello? Red light or green light, I need to cross over. I'm ready to do it, although I'm blindfolded, groping, and if I reach home free, I may not come back. That is so. But talking about games, here's a poem called The Game's Not Over. I placed the cards to play at solitaire. Straight edge to edge, they press me close around and stare at me, the soldiers and the kings, red queens and knaves, the saints and feudal lords. Too bad, my friend, a joker calls out loud. Play out your luck, but then you forfeit all. For win or lose or draw, you'll wind up dead. Not yet, I say. I am my daddy's child, and he lived long and healthy for his years. I'll quit, he'd say, when every card is played. He had the ace of spades beneath his sleeve. This next poem is an acrostic, which is one of my favorite forms to write. It's called In the Mountains. I clambered to the topmost rocks and pause. No traffic noise can reach me at this height. The sound of snowfall dripping as it thaws half muzzles the shrill kia of a kite, enfolding me in shivers of delight. My eyes are fixed on edges clean and hard. Old fears of death which torment me, I might upon this mesa finally discard. Nirvana. I inhale its peace unmarred. Too soon, a voice intrudes. It's low and gruff and deftly finds its way behind my guard. It scoffs. You can't stay here. Come off your bluff. Now trudge back to the plain where you belong. Some say it is bewitched, the mountain's song. This poem is entitled, I Have Done My Best. And I have. Cataclysmic occurrences tremble on the brink of every moment of every day. A blotch of distant color in an otherwise clear sky portends a storm of superlative dimensions. An almost imperceptible rumble beneath the earth's crust is predictive of an event of world-shattering devastation. But I have done my best. I have not opened my umbrella inside the house. I have not stepped on a crack or walked beneath a ladder. I wear garlic and carry a rabbit's foot. I have turned 7 times clockwise. My cricket chirps on the hearth. And here's one called July Morning. I am getting ready to know how I am going to feel after I am dead. I guess that chocolate won't matter anymore, but the sound of the mower and the clop clop of Bessie, the milkman's horse, and the chirring of cicadas will. When my body lies dissected, unsheathed onto formica, when my credit cards have been clipped in half, what do you suppose will have happened to the Gettysburg Address, to my telephone number, to the songs in my head? And here also from the same endgame book is Rites of Passage. I have not yet decided whether to be buried, burned, tied in a sack and tossed into the ocean, or placed in a tree to let the sun bleach my bones. Set up a signpost and turn my face in the direction I must go. Mangu ruled heavily. When later he was killed, he was borne by his followers to the royal cemetery. Buried with him were servants, horses, and wives. His was a fine funeral. Of those who encountered his cortege, all were slain. My death will be a mere disturbance. Placing forehead against forehead, mourners will weep in pairs. I do not expect that there will be a yogurt sipping ceremony at my grave. Map quest. I'm new to this dying, and yet I must say, it seems only fair nature show her intent by lighting a pathway for me to pursue. How else shall I locate those great gilded halls? With what fragrant bark should my feet now be shod? In what new-made cloth should my body be dressed? I fear I will seem like an alien soul who's blundered unknowingly into the ball where revelers dance to the trumpeter's blare in suitable winged attire. And I'm kind of fond of this one. It's called The Reckoning. When it comes time to reckon up my day, the time to balance figures bright and trim, offenses, crimes, transgressions will outweigh whatever virtues fill the interim. Though possibly you will not see my face, I'll do my best to rectify the tales. While I lie dormant in a nameless place, my thumb will gently rest upon the scales. And I can't leave this reading without reading two of my favorite poems from my chapbook called Betrayed, the cover of which is one of my paintings, by the way. To my dear Valentines. Former lovers I have known appear to me, but we have grown. Romeo stands beneath the tree. He leans upon it heavily. Lochinvar, with arms spread wide, has got a bauble in his stride. He frequently dismounts his horse because he has to pee, of course. We once were much in love, I thought. Now see the changes time has wrought. But should such matters spoil the day? Some may say yea, but I say nay. Lochinvar and Romeo, don't let these precious moments go. Now's not the time to hesitate. We'll kiss at once. It's not too late. Romeo and Lochinvar and you, no matter where you are, come clutch me in a warm embrace while I smooth wrinkles from your face. And finally, I'd like to share with you, she's a grand old girl. I pledge allegiance to the flag. Since I've become an ancient hag, I put my right hand to my chest to find I've clutched my sagging breast. It feels so good, I leave it there, while buglers proudly rend the air, proclaiming, we must not forget, libido lives inside her yet. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was great. Okay, we have a few more guest readers. Lisa DeSiro.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Karen, and everybody at Kelsay Books and everyone watching. This has been such a joy to hear all these wonderful poems, and I'm delighted to be a part of it. I'm going to read one poem from my chapbook that came out in February of last year from Kelsay Books, Simple as a Sonnet. This is called Imagined Advice from Edna St. Vincent Millay. Staying friends with lovers can be done. All you need is patience and finesse. Say you've got yourself in a bit of a mess with two gentlemen admirers, one who isn't really single and one who decides that he, well, more or less, would prefer remaining single. A stress-provoking situation, although fun might be had. But if things have gone far enough with both men, the key to successfully being platonic, which might depress the most resilient heart when left alone, is this: write until you stop dwelling on it. You see, simple, simple as a sonnet. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Love that. Okay, we're going to hear from Rosemary Boehm, right? Boehm.
Boehm, and it doesn't matter. Hang on, I said I have to unmute myself. No. There, here I am. I have had 2 chapbooks with Kelsay, and I've been unfaithful with others. And this I can't show you because it's only coming out in May or June, as Karen said. And I hope that it's going to be a bestseller, of course. This is called The Poet. She'd seen the young cowherd. Someone had called him poet. Said he recited long words and sentences to the ruminants on the high meadows. It was like chanting, they said. Incantations, perhaps. And his cows produced more milk than anyone had ever seen. She saw that he was beautiful. Why are you herding? She knew, of course, but needed his attention. It's a job, he said. Aren't you lonely? I'm not good with people, he answered. There was nothing to say to that. The girl had been too shy to speak until the cowherd lifted her with his beauty. And he had been content until she vexed him with her question.
Thank you so much. Okay, our next reader is Stephen M. Smith.
This has been absolutely wonderful, everyone. I'm going to read the title poem from my book, Strongman Contest. One sleepless summer night, to the coaxing of the crickets' chant, under the spotlight of a full moon, My boozy father sat shirtless on the steps and flexed for the Big Dipper, the Dog Star, all the blazing brawn of the night's center stage. I waited in an eternal line just to feel his hairy biceps. Then I had to arm wrestle him until my elbow felt unhinged and my straining eyes burned to dryness. He flexed again, and the begonias booed. The moths around the yard light mimicked, and the puny bat that swooped from the garage attic chased him into the house for the night. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And now Jenna is going to read the bio for our last feature. Here you go, Jenna.
Thank you. Mark Belair's poems have appeared in numerous journals, including Alabama Literary Review, Euphony Journal, Harvard Review, and Michigan Quarterly Review. Author of 7 collection of poems, his most recent book is Stonehaven, a work of fiction, by Turning Point Books 2020. Its sequel, Edgewood, will be published by Turning Point in the fall. He has been nominated for a Pushcart Prize multiple times, as well as for a Best of the Net award. Please visit www.markbelair.com.
Hello, hello to everybody, and thank you to everybody. In 2019, Karen Kelsay was kind enough to publish 2 collections of my poems as companion pieces. One is Taking Our Time, and the other is Running Late. And they were assembled as to say, companion pieces, as twins, really, because each collection has 60 poems. They're organized in subject matter in the same order, and there really are reflections of each other. And so what I'd like to do is, they cover obviously a wide variety of subjects, but I thought I would narrow it down to 3 universals, those being work, love, and death. And so we'll start with work, and the first poem is called Handles. In the late day garden shed, in the late summer light, the old yard tools, rakes, shovels, axes, hoes, form a lean-to offering a fan of worn wooden handles that nestle with neither eagerness nor reluctance, but with a simple, calm grace that seems to glow in the filtered light. Each tool stripped to its essence, paired to a monk's purity, yet each as narrowly incomplete as me, until work to take on, I take hold. The next poem is Crushed Ice. The old downtown fish shop stands closed, and not just for the day, it seems. The rolled paper dispenser empty, the shiny knife rack stripped, the soggy sawdust unswept, and of course, no spread of fish. Yet, the rake steel display where the day's catch would lay arrayed holds a coat of fresh crushed ice, cleanly grated. Its crisp presence absurd, but there it is. Someone's careful handiwork, perhaps of the laborer in rubber boots always there. A gnarled man not knowledgeable and skilled like the counterman, but a simple man holding down a simple job he has probably worked for decades, so ancient is this shop. A job he, unfit for much else, may have worked to the exclusion of all else. A job the loss of which may mean the end of his working life. A ruination he replays each day by spreading ice, as if to smooth, before the storefront holds yet another boutique, his soft, chilled, unfashionable soul. The next one is a little longer prose poem, and let me find it here. It's about a young musician. Musicians are workers too. It's not easy. I've been a musician all my life, so I speak from experience. This is called Carter Tate. Carter Tate, the man said, his southern accent after the phone startled me awake, fixing my bleary location in an Alabama roadside motel. The rest of the rock band down the row of rooms like boarded rescue dogs. Wrong room, I mumbled, annoyed at the mistake, as this middle of the night phone call disturbed my few hours of sleep between last night's club date and this morning's bus. Carter Tate, the gruff gent insisted, annoyed himself, and why I didn't hang up, I don't know. Grogginess perhaps making me righteously indignant, but I nearly shouted to him, there's no Carter Tate here. Then he slowed down for the obvious Yankee and said, full of professional patience, tested to its southern hospitality limits, Carter Tate. I had left a wake-up call for 7:45. Outside in the early morning light, by the idling bus, stood a vending machine. And I figured even vending machine coffee might help. So I plunked in my coins for the largest styrofoam cup on display before noticing the handwritten sign, night crawlers. Onto the bus, I took my cup, which opened to dirt-coated worms crowded in, over-entangled, far from home turf. When we arrived in Georgia and parked outside the next club, I searched behind it until I found a sweet patch of loam and weeds and broken beer bottles, where I again uncovered the cup and let the crawlers loose. All once fated for a hook, a drowning, and a final dicing. They now all slithered away, each to find a new life. And one more about work. If I can find it. Yeah, it's called, I'll find it. Workhorses. I'm going between two books, forgive me. Workhorses. In a winter meadow, 3 workhorses, spines bowed, graze on what a farmer must have strewn across a stretch of the crusted snow that blankets his farmland. His fields rimmed by dark trees, the sky large, the horses released from the warm barn, distant, so small, and feeding not, it seems, on the unseen hay and oats, but having worked the hard seasons true on this soft winter paradise. And a few poems about love. This first one's called The Curtain. A beaded curtain of rain hangs from an awning. The drizzle beyond it, silvery as smoke in a vintage nightclub. The hush of drops brushes on a snare drum. The sidewalk benches banquettes. The solo passersby with umbrellas, singles, cruising the town with their guard up. Some couples closely huddled, drenching themselves on the street lamp lit dance floor that welcomes all in their search for love, or what will make do for it once again as night falls. This one is called The Sweet Spot. While walking beside her, her boyfriend said something so wonderfully amusing. The teenage girl looked up from her milkshake straw to smile, which left a little white dot of shake on her lips. The full circle having and reforming as she chatted with delight until her boyfriend, watching the dotty dot, couldn't stand it any longer and stopped to give that sweet spot a kiss, a little vanilla transferring to his lips. The girl gazing up and giggling at that trace of foam fluff, then still graced with a speck herself, tiptoeing up for a sweet, sweet kiss. And this one is a slightly longer poem. It's called These Wants. The bow of a wooden rowboat scrapes the beach, and you step out into ankle-high lake water and angle in the polished oars and pull the peeling boat ashore far enough so that it won't float back out even if it storms. And you trudge toward the rental cabin and dip your feet, sandy from the beach, into a dented aluminum basin of warm tap water and leave damp footprints on the dark green porch steps. Then your sun-tautened skin chills in the porch shade, and clinking sounds from the still hidden kitchen alert you to a thirst you didn't really notice out in the boat, rowing alone, while a waft of onions simmering in butter reminds you it's been hours since you ate. Then you notice that the few steps that take you through the sitting room feel ungainly, stiff. You need, after all that rowing, to rest your arms and legs and pause in the bathroom too. But you're eager to tell your loved one all about your boating adventure, in which not much, yet everything happened. So soldier on into the unfamiliar kitchen where the familiar back of your loved one as she tries to unscrew a balky cap, her hair casually gathered up, her lovely swan neck pleading for a spray of rosebud kisses, stops you in your tracks. For it dawns on you, just then, in the dusky light, how all these simple wants, now gathered to a keen point of feeling, are the everyday wants. And here your jar abstracted loved one, hearing your approach, turns to see your tears suddenly well, so softens in tender perplexity, which makes them nearly spill. These wants are the everyday wants you forever and ever want. And one final one about love. It's called Bag of Blood. I am brimming with blood, my skin taut with it, my resting hands pulsing with it. I'm a bone-born bag of blood, like an IV. I could be hung and sourced. I'm alive with it, made alive by it, circulating it, my animal duty, my species of spirituality. Blood secures me, yet lets me run wild, my pounding legs streaming with it. My blood-rich heart, what of me loves me most? What of myself I love most? It is core to all I am and beats quietly at night, repeating your name, telling me, my love, that if you'll take such a thing, it's yours. And the last couple of poems are about death. This one's called Air. Out the window, we could see the flat hospital roof with its coat of gravel and air conditioning unit. The parking lot stretching below, random wings of the rambling complex, our ICU room quiet, but for the rhythm of a ventilator simulating breath in a life all but gone. His eyes not closed as if sleeping, but sealed shut. The machine once turned off, followed by so few breaths, it confirmed the choice. He had no lungs after years of emphysema left to live on. Later, exhausted by tears, we left the air conditioning and trudged into the heat and drove from the parking lot. The hospital receding behind us, our weeping still with us, still leaving us as we struggle to square his absence with the cruel, monstrous presence of the earth's lovely air, gasping for breath. And the final poem is a short poem called The Trinket. The Trinket. So many loners I have known have died, leaving few family and friends. Deaths that occurred so long ago, I may be, or soon could become, the last mortal left to have witnessed their life. The sole remainder from their small, scattered estate, the findable, traceable trinket on a flea market table, sunlit until shadowed by what will take it away. Thank Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mark. It was great to see you. We're just at the end now, and I'm gonna have Kelsay go ahead and turn off the recording.